It's Sunday, July 28th, 2024, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time here in Champaign, Illinois. You are watching Co-op for Two. Today we're doing a live channel update Q&A. This is the 14th one. I can see YouTube says there were 9 viewers. As soon as I started talking, it dropped down to 8. So we've got a small group today, but that's all right. I have my slides. I have a couple things to talk through, but we can do it quickly. I'm happy to answer any questions, talk about really whatever you want. If you post questions while I'm talking, that's fine. That's the way to do it. And then every once in a while, I'll check in on the chat and answer any questions. And then we can spend any time at the end talking about whatever you want. I can see we've got our normal people here, normal group. Hopefully everything is live and going fine. Okay, let's take a look at what I've prepared here for us. I don't have anything really interesting to talk about, but I'm going to do my normal thing about what I think in an ideal world every YouTube channel would have to go over their statistics, whatever. So here's my little outline. We'll do our, mostly this is the way all of these live updates go for me. We'll look at the statistics of the channel in YouTube. We'll look at some of the recent videos since the last update. Last update was 4 months ago. I'll talk a little bit about Gencon, the board gaming convention that starts next week. I'll give you a little bit of update on High and Low, the New York Noir Mysteries, Sherlock Holmes Consulting detective style game I've been working on for a year now. I'll give a very brief report on Patreon, upcoming plans, a couple YouTube channels to recommend, and then we'll sit around for questions and answers. Okay, here's your preliminaries. If you're new to this channel, there is a Discord, and I'm on it almost 24 hours a day. And it's a fairly active Discord where we talk about the games we're playing on the channel, but just other general things about board games. And there's a whole set of channels talking about high and low game development and writing cases for it, etc. There's also a guild on Board Game Geek. If you don't know what that is, it's basically like a little sub-forum area, private forum area. Not private, anyone can join it, but specifically for this channel. And the main thing we do there is plan out what games to play next and on what schedule. So if you're interested in joining for a live stream, or you have a game you're particularly interested to see us play or have me review, you should stop by that guild and look for the game queue thread. There are links to all three of these things on the YouTube page. There's a part where it says more links. There is a Patreon for this channel if you'd like to help pay for the games that I purchase. All the games we play on this channel are purchased by me and with help from the Patreon group. I have no relationship with any publisher, and that's probably become clear in some recent negative reviews I've done of games we've played. Okay, let us look at some stats. Let me see if I can do this properly. Let's see if this will bring up the... There we go. Okay, so here are our stats for the last 90 days. It's too much pain to go back 4 months. So we're just going to do 3 months each time I do a channel update. You can see channel's getting about 3 subscribers a day. That seems to be up a little bit from before. Every 48 hours, 1,200 views. That's about normal. It dips down to below 1,000 quite frequently, though, and almost never gets above 2,000 every 48 hours. You can see 58,000 views, whatever that means. Is there anything significant here? I mean, the channel does not change that much. This is basically how it stays. I guess it's a little bit up from where it's been. If we look at, I don't know if we see lifetime. we can see basic stats. So 3.3 thousand subscribers. There's the trajectory of the channel over almost 4 years. Okay, let's go back to 90 days. Is there anything else to look at that's interesting? I guess I know people study these stats. I don't really, it's not the thing I like doing, so I don't do it. So I don't really know if someone has any suggestions of what would be interesting to look at. But I guess you could see where subscribers came from, some Seven Citadel stuff. I guess the top 10s and the short reviews tend to get more viewers. I think this is, let's see, subscribers who turned on all notifications, 7%. YouTube notifications, 4%. Here's the viewers coming from US, United Kingdom, Canada. Watch time from subscribers. So 56% of the time watching the channel is they're subscribed, 44% not. Age and gender breakdown. Here we are, 80% male, 20% female. I don't know how this compares to other YouTube channels or board game channels. Does seem like we've got some very smart, strong women watching this channel, helping us solve cases. So I'm very happy with that. Here's our age breakdown. I guess that makes some sense. Here I am just barely sneaking under this category here. All right, so that's all the stats I have for you. Now let's look at the videos that have been up. No, that's not what we want to do. We want to go to this tab here. Okay, so let's look at the videos that have been up since the last update. So these are recorded videos. So should we start at the live? Maybe we should start at live first. Okay, so here's our live videos since the last update. We played a couple of Think Fun cold case games. We finished 2 series of Dear Holmes. We finished the Murano Man and the Bewildered Blacksmith. We just finished Murano Man in 4 parts. Before that, Bewildered Blacksmith. This was our other Think Fun case. We played Guilty, a brand new small card-based game that was marked for 18 and up that we really quite liked, although we had some criticisms about it. We played another fan-made case inspired by Sherlock Holmes, Consulting Detective, but standalone. We quite like that. And Martin has suggested he's going to write us a custom case to play. We played a Hunt-a-Killer game. Dead on the Vine. Hunt-a-Killer has just released a couple other small box standalone games, one of which I just ordered because it's a level 4 difficulty. So I'm curious to see what that's like. I did an update on High and Low. We played Body of Evidence, which I was pretty harsh on. We played an Escape the Crate game. We played a Case 4 from West End Adventures, Missing in the Caribbean, another cold case. There's our other Think Fun case, I guess. We played a 3-part series from Be the Detective called Adventure Park. And I had some real complaints about it. Seems like maybe the audience was a little more positive. The previous case from Be the Detective, called The Duel, I loved. This one I had some real complaints about. We played Bureau of Investigation fan case, and then we played, Jonathan and I mainly, but Isar and some others, a lot of Seven Citadel. We played, I think, 11 parts and then a 2-hour wrap-up. So we played about 70, 80 hours of live playthroughs of the Seven Citadel, playing through the first curse. I would play another curse. I would play another 80 hours when Jonathan feels like he's ready. You let me know, Jonathan. We played another crime scene case, which is cards that lay out on a map, or not a map. Yes, it forms a big crime scene picture. It's sort of a half search for things in a visual scene and half puzzle, but it was pretty good. I have some more. I would play some more. We played the fifth case from Cold Case Investigation Unit, a series that I quite like. We tried an experiment. Instead of Dear Holmes, for 4 weeks, we played this Sherlock Holmes crime dossier, which was basically just a retelling of the first Sherlock Holmes story called A Study in Scar. I can see my chat has just disappeared. That's unfortunate. But I have it here, so I can look at it here. That's okay. Okay. Lots of Seven Citadel. We played a Deadbolt Mystery Society, another West End Adventures case. This is our continuing series of Sherlock Holmes. We played a mug book case. We played the Morrison Game Factory, which was quite a special game. Had some complaints about it, but it is quite good, a sort of deluxe experience. We played Detective for the first time, and I really liked it. We should play some more of that on the channel. It's not really suited for solo or channel play, but I think it was a good enough case that it would be worth playing. We played the latest Cryptic Killers game right when it came out. A bunch of these we played right when they came out, so that's kind of fun. Cryptic Killers, their latest game, rated at 4 difficulty, I think was very good. In fact, the favorite of the Cryptic Killers series for quite a few of us. Maybe my second favorite. But boy, Cryptic Killers is really hitting their stride. And I would absolutely recommend that for advanced players. And then that was it. So those are the live streams. And then videos. I recorded a review of Body of Evidence. These are all short, quick review videos. And I was pretty damn harsh on Body of Evidence, the autopsy game. And you could see I was a little bitter about it. Not bitter is not the right word, but I was skeptical when I backed it on Kickstarter. And it felt to me, I always get like a spider sense when a company is pushing out free review copies to everyone and getting all these positive preview videos of people who aren't fully reviewing the game. So I was suspicious of it. I'm always suspicious of gimmicks, and it seemed like all my suspicions were well-founded. There was actually a good cold case at the bottom of this, but boy, there was some really rough stuff. And then I tried to catch up reviews on last week, all the games we've played recently. So the Think Fun series, the Dead on the Vine, Hunt to Kill, or Guilty, Missing in the Caribbean. I did another Deadbolt Mystery Society box roundup. That makes 20 Deadbolt Mystery Society box games that I've reviewed. I think one of our favorite games was in that set, Blackout. I did a short little video, sort of unofficial video, on the high and low tool I've been working on. I did a video on a new OBS plugin I released. I'll talk about that later, coming up. I did a review of Seven Citadel, a review of 2 of these side quest games, one I liked, one I didn't, review of Morrison Game Factory, review of the latest Cryptic Killers, and then I posted 4 videos talking about the Seven Citadel. After we played 70 hours of the Seven Citadel, I was inspired to make a whole bunch of videos talking about rules, strategy, tips, and DIY stuff. Okay, and that's the end of the videos. All right, let's see if I can go back to my slides here. Okay, to summarize, 16 recorded videos, 52 live streams, totaling 226 hours. Can that possibly be right? I think it is, because half of that almost is Seven Citadel. Okay, so that's the content that went up on the channel in the last 4 months. All right, let me check in with the chat. My laptop that I've got a second monitor over here that shows my the live chat normally, and it decided to reboot. That's probably because I haven't plugged it in after. No, I don't know why it is, but that's okay. I have a screen here with the chat, and I can bring the chat up on the screen. All right, no questions so far. That's okay. Let's see, what have we got next? Outside the channel. Okay, so I mentioned that I released a new OBS plugin. If people don't know, OBS is the software that I use for live streaming. That's the software that's in charge of broadcasting here. Do I have a way to show you what that looks like? Yes, sort of. Here's what you now see what I see when I look forward. That's OBS. And so I should have put that other screen full screen. Okay, anyway. I did release a new plugin for OBS. I've written a whole bunch of plugins, most of which I use and wouldn't be of that much interest to anyone else, but I finally did release one of two plugins that are useful to other people. This one called JR Docky. I tried to actually submit it as a GitHub pull request for them to add to the official source code distribution, but nothing ever came of it, so I finally just rewrote it as a plugin. But it does seem to be getting a little bit of attention and people like it, so that's always fun. And I also wanted to mention, you might want to check those out if you're curious. I wanted to mention that I did go on vacation recently and I brought some board games. And my go-to game for groups that are not gamers, that just want to sort of party game. I do like party games for bringing to groups and especially family, but Green Team Wins is the game recently that I've been introducing to groups. Especially if you're sort of like an introvert like me and you're sort of the idea of performing, getting up in front of people, or playing a game where you're might be make a mistake or you need to know trivia, those things are a little uncomfortable. Green Team Wins doesn't require any real skill. It's one of those party games where you sort of get to know the people and laugh and yell at people while you're playing. I really do like that one. I also taught my niece Fox in the Forest and my sister. And that's one of my favorite little two-player competitive games. And I did bring them Medical Mysteries, which we've talked about on the channel quite a lot, for them to play. And they're playing it actually right now as we speak. And the other thing I did, which I wanted to recommend for anyone in a relationship where they've got someone that speaks a different language. So, you know, my wife is a US citizen, but she speaks Japanese and I don't. And so she brought back from the last time she went to Japan a couple of Japanese mystery games, cold case games, and games like that. And we did bring one to play. And I did want to recommend it as an activity because it's fun. Only one person can actually read the cards. It works better if the person reading the cards is not maybe the super fan of that kind of game. So one person is more interested in solving the mystery and the other person is like the translator. We were even talking about on this channel, could I get my wife to come on and just be the translator for us as we played through a game? Anyway, an idea to try if you're in a mixed relationship or if you've got someone in your family that knows the language. There's lots of mystery games that are only available in certain countries. You can just pick out one of those games from a foreign country in that foreign language, let that person do the translating. Okay, next up, Gencon. Gencon is the largest board gaming convention in the US. It's August 1st to the 4th. I've been going for the last 5 or 6 years with my little friend group here. And I will be going from Wednesday to Sunday next week. If you're going to be at Gen Con and want to meet up just to say hello for a minute or two, let me know. I'd be happy to bring you a little espresso mug. I mean, I'll have a couple of these, but I'm happy to bring one or two. I am going to bring High and Low, the game that I've been working on with the demo case that's fully playable. If you have a couple hours and you want to play High and Low in person, let me know. I'm happy to schedule it. I don't really go to Gen Con for activities or really for the games anymore. I just go to hang out with my friends on a little vacation for a week. We all cram into one hotel room, 4 or 5 of us, eat snacks, talk about board games, play board games, play lots of board games. Every night we reserve the Hot Games Room. So I wanted to make a couple recommendations if you're going to Gen Con. The Hot Games Room is where we go every night. And that's where they have many of the latest games that are available for sale that you can, it's a lending library, you can borrow it and play it. They've got a giant lending library of old games, but the Hot Games Room is run by BGG and it's just the newer games. And that's where we go every night. I tend to volunteer to learn the rules for the longer, harder games. I enjoy learning rules and reading rule books and teaching games, maybe even a little more than playing them, but that's where we spend our time. I might attend some of the writing seminars. There are a whole bunch of series on writing narrative for games, and I might try to do that. But the other reason I go to Gen Con recently is just to be in an atmosphere. It's sort of like where people can go and work in a coffee shop because there's some activity. So I'm going to be planning to spend a lot of my time just sitting down writing on High and Low, maybe try to write another case in this atmosphere. I did go through the Board Game Geek Gen Con preview, which I recommend if you're going to Gen Con to look at the games that will be available to demo and buy. Not that much is of interest to me, but I highlighted here 4 games I am interested in. This one here on the left is a new mystery game co-authored by Dave Neal. Now, longtime fans of the channel know that Dave Neal has a special place here because he wrote the Baker Street Irregulars box, which is my favorite Sherlock Holmes consulting detective box, and he's written a couple of other games, The Animals of Baker Street and Perspectives, all of which I've reviewed. So I'm really looking forward to that. I don't think that'll be available for sale. The next game there, Jekyll and Hyde versus Scotland Yard, is a cooperative take on Jekyll and Hyde, a nice small 2-player competitive game that I like. Then the next here is Masters of Crime, which is a new series from Cosmos that does a whole bunch of these small box mystery detective games. I'm interested in that. I don't know if that'll be available for sale. And then the last game on that list is a new take on one of the early board games that I ever started playing. Not the first board game I've played, but Survive is this very cool, fun experience where this island is sinking and players are competing to get off the island. And I have very fond memories of playing that with friends. So I think I'll be checking out that one. All right, let's see. Jonathan says, have you seen the movie Longlegs? Saw it myself and loved parts of it, but had a lot of personal preference nitpicks. Enjoyed parts of it. I did see Longlegs. I did not like it. I thought there were some very bad directorial decisions. Now, I understand the director is the son of Anthony Perkins. Is that right? There were some visual looks of it that I liked. I like that sort of 70s washed out aesthetic. But there were other decisions in the movie that were inexplicable to me. I don't want to say anything because I don't want to spoil it, but I did not like it. I thought it was ugly in a bad way and just a waste. Every time I see movies now, the dominant feeling I get is, what a waste of money and effort. How many blue ruins could have been made with the money that you spent on this movie? That's what I think. How many blue ruins does it amount to? Okay. before we get into the high and low updates, let's check in with the chat. Let's see if there are other questions. Invisible Man says, the time of movies is over. I pretty much agree with you. The time of, what I think they need to do is take all the movie theaters, convert them to watching shows, watching series, or old movies. Stop this model of only showing new movies at movie theaters and switch over to showing just generic TV shows, HBO, old movies. Because the movies they're making today are too expensive. They're not any good. This year, though, we did have some amazing TV series. Ripley, Shogun. Ripley and Shogun are amazing series. If you can find a way to watch them, check them out. And my favorite movie of the year, I think, was Reptile. And that's a Netflix-only movie that didn't get great reviews. And I would love to see that in the movie theater. I've seen it 5 or 6 times. Someone in the Discord was saying that their local movie theater was just playing High and Low, the Akira Kurosawa movie, one of my favorite movies ever. And I forgot to, I'll recommend another movie while we're talking about movies that I meant to recommend when we played the last bank robbery game. I wanted to recommend Marathon Man. If you haven't seen Marathon Man, Dustin Hoffman, Laurence Olivier, and Roy Scheider. Is it safe? Yeah, you gotta watch that movie. Okay, let's speak. Since we've circled back to New York City, let's go back to high and low. Okay, I'm not going to talk about what high and low is, which we've sort of renamed to New York Noir Mysteries High and Low. There's lots of videos on this channel about it. It's the board game I've been working on with some help. It's not behind me. Oh, yes, it is. It is right behind me there, that purple box. Okay, we're going to have to figure out a way to sort of change the subtitle of it. All right, so 2 major tracks have been happening with development. First is that Logan, our artist, has been busy working on neighborhoods, and he's sort of unfortunately been tasked with 2 jobs because we could use another volunteer to help out Logan, not doing the art, but researching points of interest. So he's been drawing neighborhood building art, and it's a little hard to see. Maybe if I go to full screen, you can see it a little bit better. So here's Times Square. He's been drawing these buildings in here, and they're the real buildings, how they really looked, that really existed. And he's been going through the neighborhoods, slowly but surely. He's got 5 done already. Times Square, Hell's Kitchen, Carnegie Mansion, Turtle Bay, the Bowery. So 1 out of 7, 1/7 of the neighborhoods. But when we're all done, every neighborhood will be populated like this. And we're trying to make the different neighborhoods feel differently, you know, so the Times Square should have lots of hotels and stuff, and the Bowery will have more theaters and rundown places. So that's the idea. I'm excited about it. And all of these pictures are in high res as well, so they could be used within the game if you wanted people to visit places. And the other thing that Logan is unfortunately having to do, and he could use some help, is going from my master list of hundreds and hundreds of points of interest, figuring out which ones I might have gotten the timeline wrong in, that they don't actually belong there, or they're sort of misplaced, or maybe I've overlooked an important historical place. Okay, now before we continue there, Joe J. Anderson says, out of subject, but does your t-shirt have a story? Well, it says I die, you die, but the story of it is it's by a local designer. It's on Etsy, and a local person in Champaign, Illinois makes this shirt, and I quite love it. Okay, so there's our, what do you think about having a list of games to choose from for our gaming sessions. I'm not sure if you mean on this channel specifically or in general. If you go to Board Game Geek Guild for this channel, there's a thread called Game Queue, which is 50 pages long, and the first post in that thread has all of the games that I own that are candidates for us playing. So a couple hundred games to choose from. So that's the place to go if you want to decide, if you want to help decide what game to play next. Okay, now, this is what I have been working on High and Low. I have been working on the tools for building cases. Now, I've talked about this before. So my demo case was written using a tool I wrote that was made in Python for offline. It sort of takes a markup language and produces a nice PDF with nice table of contents and all these extra things that the cases can do that the software can do to make it easier to write a nice big long case that you would play in booklet form. You could use the tool to make Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective cases as well. It produces a nice layout book. It can produce it in different formats. It's got all this boilerplate text. It creates nice jumps if you want to take branching choices, etc. Renders it using LaTeX and then to PDF. A month or so ago, I finished the online version of that, which you're seeing a screenshot here on the right-hand side of your screen. And I was actually thrilled with how that turned out, because one of the real pains of developing in Python, I'm a C++ coder by trade, but I've been using Python a lot more recently. But one of the problems with Python is the pain in deploying it online. But last decade or so has seen the rise of all these virtual servers. And what I did for this tool, which is online now on the web at nycnoir.org, is I used Docker, which is a way of sort of virtualizing a whole machine and all the software it needs to run. And this tool needs a lot of software because LaTeX is hundreds of megabytes, big giant project. That's the tool that actually does the nice typesetting and rendering to PDF. But I've made a Docker image for that, which makes it very easy for me to deploy online, but also makes it easy for anyone who wants to just run it locally. So if you wanted to write a case for High and Low or Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, you could grab the Docker image and just run it in a little sandbox and compile and build your cases standalone without having to go on the web. So I'm pretty happy about that. With that, I wrote a sort of reference manual for how to write your case, the sort of markup little language, ad hoc language that you use to write a case, which is what I use to write my demo case. And that was written using a sort of markup language, sort of something on top of the little existing language markup. But it's an ad hoc thing, and it works well enough for creating printable cases. But I have talked about how one of the real directions I want to take this project is to supporting play-by-mail cases. One of my favorite genres that we've played, play-by-mail cases. For example, murdersbymail.com. That's the best implemented one I know of that we've played. We've played through all three of their cases. And basically, it's like a Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective case, except you submit your moves online, and then in a week you get a letter that says, well, I went here as you told me, I went here as you told me, and here. So what I've done is I've designed a little mini proper language now, a formal language, which I'm calling Casebook. And it's in the same vein as these interactive fiction languages. There's a real history, an interesting history of interactive fiction language, like Inform, the language that they used to make the Infocom games, and then the most popular one now is called Twine. And these are little languages and runtime engines for building interactive games. Infocom is a text-based adventure game, and Twine are much more hypertext, like you read a paragraph and you click where you want to go and you branch off and go there. But they're little mini complete languages. But they're designed for interactive games that you play on a screen. Whereas what I'm interested in with this is a little language for writing games that are meant to be played non-interactively through the mail with a delayed response. And ideally, you could write a case, the same case, to be printed out and played, and then also to be hosted online that people could play with a play-by-mail system, either delayed email replies or actual printed replies. So I spent the last several weeks, maybe the last month, working on a complete rewrite of this website and ad hoc language to a properly formal EBNF syntax language called Casebook. I'm using a Python parser library called Lark to do it. It's mostly done, and I've got a whole big document describing the philosophy of it and the syntax. Let me see if I can bring it up here. So yeah, a little discussion. And if you go to the NYC Noir page, you'll find a link to this. It still needs lots of work, but the idea is to have, well, what have I written here for philosophy? Overwhelming majority of text written for a casebook game is normally human readable text. Only in rare occasions the author needs to specify instructions for layout. Casebook language syntax first and foremost intended to stay out of the way until needed. Anyway, so you might think of it as an alternative to Twine, but made for play-by-mail games. I could use some help. There's a lot of work that needs to be done still, and it's sort of a project that could go on for years, adding features and stuff. If you're a Python coder, if this sounds like a project you might be interested in, please reach out to me. And as always, if you're interested in writing cases for this world or Sherlock Holmes Consulting detective cases, especially if you're interested in sort of breaking new ground, writing play-by-mail cases, please let me know, because part of this work is not programming work, but just figuring out what kind of features does the language need to support to let people make decisions over the mail. We've brainstormed on this channel and on the Discord about ideas, new ideas for how people could submit moves. Could they say, well, I want you to ask this person about this, etc. Keeping a queue of places you want to go. Lots of interesting ideas in innovating this genre of play-by-mail mystery games, which is almost completely untapped area. Lots of fascinating stuff to do. If you're interested in game design and interested in this kind of thing, I hope you'll reach out. Okay, let's take a break and check in with the chat. Marco says, what do you think? Oh, we talked about that. Jonathan Warner says, going back to the Japanese mystery games, were there any unique mechanics or clues that stood out? Rob says, that's a good idea for a video comparing the different styles of games with stuff like the Chinese Jubancha. There was a recent video by Shut Up and Sit Down, a channel that I'm not normally a huge fan of, talking about the Chinese subculture around some of these mystery games. The Japanese game we played, it was in the line of Suspects and Guilty. Small box, card-based, I wouldn't say there were too many new mechanics, but what it was using was tokens, time tokens that you have to spend to read a clue. So a whole bunch of cards face down with new cards that come out. And similar to Guilty, you can't see all cards, but they divvy up these tokens to the players. And so a player chooses to use one of their tokens and picks what clues to read. And then when you run out of tokens, you go to the next act. So it was just a little twist on how you have limited amount of time. Actually, a pretty good system. Suspect says you get to see 20 cards, and then you Suspects doesn't really have acts, but different ways of keeping track of time. And this one had a very clean, simple system of just paying tokens. I do like the way if you're playing multiple players, it gives each player a little bit of agency. Okay, let's see what's next. Okay, here's your little Patreon report, which I will be doing in every channel update for what it's worth. There are 20 paid subscribers, 4 in the last 4 months. So we get about 1 new subscriber per month. Obviously, if you were hoping to make a living off Patreon, 3 years, 20 paid subscribers would not be a good number, but here it's all wonderful. It's all appreciated. And I guess I've only restarted the Patreon recently. So anyway, Patreon is bringing in $93 a month. That is not nothing. That absolutely helps pay for games and makes it much easier for me to click the trigger, pull the trigger, and purchase a new expensive game that the channel is interested in playing. And I hope the Patreon supporters will speak up if they have a game that might otherwise be too expensive to buy, some $300 game. Please do speak up and say, hey, I want you to play. It would be great if you bought and played this. It does make it a little more enjoyable for me to purchase games that I'm not sure I'm going to enjoy. And I did use the Patreon money. I mean, it's all a slush fund here. It's fungible. It's just, but I did buy a new chair, which I'm sitting in here. It's a Steelcase Amiya, and I bought it remanufactured if you're interested in that kind of thing. I went and tried it out in person. It's nothing amazing, but it's a good quality adjustable chair. It cost about $500. It's a $1,000 new chair, but there's such a market in these expensive chairs of resellers buying them and remanufacturing them. So that's what this is. This is a chair you could probably pick up for $900 new, or you can buy it remanufactured for $400 or $500 or even less. And they put a new seat and a new back, but they keep the mechanical parts of the chair, which are built like tanks. Now, someone has noticed, so thank you to the Patreon supporters for that. It says, nice flex having 2 gumshoe boxes on the shelf. I was wondering if you guys would notice that. Okay, so behind me, you see there are 2 boxes of Gumshoe. It almost looks like a glitch. Gumshoe is a rare out-of-print game, the closest game to New York Noir Mysteries. It's a noir set in Los Angeles, giant epic game, spread over 10 days with continuing cases. One of the most epic games. And I played that in the early days of this channel. And I recorded live streams of the first 3 days of it. And I recorded a review and a video on how I would play it. And this was several years ago. After 3 days, it became a little overwhelming. There was no one playing it with me. I can't remember if I actually technically played it live, but this was before I had people joining me regularly for these mysteries, which has been the real revelation of this channel, is how much fun it is to play these games with you guys and to be able to talk while we're playing. But when I played Gumshoe, I didn't have that. So it's just on my own. And it got a bit exhausting to be trying to film it live. The sessions were so long. So I didn't film the whole playthrough, but I did finish it. And the other thing I did was I wrote all over the book. There's a big giant book. And I wrote and noted, because I wanted to, it's easier to play a game when you're marking it up, easier to keep track of notes and stuff. But this is a game that costs $100 now when you buy it, since it's out of print. You buy it used on eBay. And ever since I played it, though, I thought, wow, boy, that would have been so much more enjoyable to play it on the channel and share the experience and play it with people back and forth. And it's such a rare game, and it's so expensive that, and my memory isn't so good. So my idea is that we will play this together eventually. Maybe wait another, mostly my memories are all gone from it, but I still have a couple. So in another couple years, though, I'll have forgotten everything and we can play it together on the channel. I should say, though, that someone on Board Game Geek has collected all the digital items from this game. So you now can play it on, you can download digital versions of playing if you're interested, and check out my videos on Gumshoe if you're interested. But I'm going to talk a little bit about this idea of these epic games in a second. Let's see. Are there any rare games you haven't gotten hold of yet? I don't think there are. The other big, people talk about Grail games as being the games that they are searching for. The other main one was Mugbook, which we've gotten recently, which we need to play more of. I'm ready to play one of the long cases from Mugbook. I don't think there really are any super rare mystery games that we don't have at this point. Lucas says, I have a copy of Gumshoe. It's such a big undertaking. I've never jumped in. It absolutely is. Check out my video on my suggestions of how I would play it if I was doing it again. Have you ever thought of introducing the possibility of having people in the chat speak by voice for limited occasions, chosen by you, otherwise would be a mess, if technically possible? Well, I did go through the trouble of setting up stuff so that I can have a live conversation with someone on the channel. I believe we've only done it once here. And that was when we talked with Matt C., who created a custom one-of-a-kind, one-time play-by-mail game that we played on the channel. Sherlock Holmes custom mail-based game where he wrote the replies as we submitted them. I think we called it Improv Holmes or something. You can find those videos on the channel. It's a very special experience. And when we finished, Matt and I had a Zoom conversation. I do not like talking on the phone, talking through Zoom in general. So it's definitely not something I would do regularly. At some point, I asked Jonathan Warner, who's been joining me since the early days on this channel, if he ever wanted to get on a Zoom during one of these videos to share his thoughts. Jonathan often gives his thoughts about the games we play, and they're often quite insightful. Jonathan said, nope. So that's basically where it died. But I am absolutely open to the idea of occasionally having one person come on, or if I love experimenting with stuff on this channel. So if this channel ever wanted to say, like, for this one experience, there are 4 of us that played it through, let's have the last live stream be a Zoom call where there's 4 of us, 4 or 5 of us on the Zoom. I'm happy to try anything once. Having regular conversations, no, but we could try something. We could always try it once. What are the rarest, most expensive mystery games? Adventures by Gaslight. That's right. Adventures by Gaslight, the green box Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective expansion is one of them. Gumshoe is another one. Mugbook is another one. And then maybe the crime dossiers, 1930s crime dossiers by Dennis Wheatley and Helen Riley. I think that would be the set. Unless I'm overlooking one. Those are the main ones. Okay, let's go back to our, whoops, go back to our thing here. Let's see, upcoming plans. Okay. So I'll be at Gencon for the first week in August, but after that, I have a good chunk of free time for the remainder of August, the last 3 weeks in August. So I think you can expect lots of live streams in August, including some longer games. I'm particularly keen to play through Razorhurst Blood Alley. This is John Keen's follow-up to Razorhurst, which I loved, and you can find a review and playthrough of that on the channel. So the only reason I haven't scheduled that yet is I'm waiting for our top detectives here in the channel to tell me what's convenient for them. Probably we need 4 days or so to play it. So sometime in the last 3 weeks of August, I hope we'll be able to get to that. I also wouldn't mind playing more 7 Citadel, but that's a, you know, an 80-hour, 60, 70-hour block of time. And so we'll see. But I would absolutely be willing to play more of it. And then something of a tradition here on the channel is in October, in and around Halloween, we try to play some deluxe spooky games. And so Jonathan Warner started a thread on the Board Game Geek Guild talking about what games we should play. We have a couple of deluxe ones, Root of All Evil, Never House. Someone just posted a very nice comment about our playthrough of Witchery Spell that I think we played on Halloween last year, which was quite special. And someone just posted a nice comment saying they were watching along with that and getting into it. So we'll try to do the same thing this October. And then I have a couple of videos I'd like to get recorded, but I'm open to suggestions. If you guys think you have videos that would be useful to record. One, which we've been sort of talking about recently, would be a discussion of the most epic games we've played. I did record a top 10 longest, most epic games, but that needs to be updated because we've played a bunch of games now that compete for that. So I would like to record another update for that. And I keep meaning to record new videos that are like, so you want to try a cold case game, your first cold case game. Sort of occasionally I get questions about where should I start? What series should I start with? And I did make 1 or 2. I think I made a video like that said, so you want to try a detective mystery game, and I recommended different games for different audiences. But I think maybe more specific targeted videos to help people decide what game to play if they want to try one of these for the first time, depending on their experience level and group. And then I've been toying with the idea of doing a series of videos on how to do live streaming of board games and use OBS. I'm not sure it's really needed, and I did record a whole long video course on setting up a micro studio for YouTube for board game video production. That took a huge amount of work and planning, and no one cares and no one watches that. So I don't know why I would try this again. But I do have a lot of custom stuff that I set up for OBS. And it's not like I do a particularly good job of this, but what I am relatively good at is getting best bang for the buck in terms of workload and streamlining things to be easy to turn on and start going and minimizing the work involved. So maybe that would be worth doing. And maybe the suggestion today to make a video about the most rare out-of-print mystery games would be interesting too. Okay, let's get to the section recommending YouTube channels. I have 2 I wanted to mention today. One is a channel called Neon Gorilla. This is a fairly new board game YouTube channel, but one of these high production qualities, entertaining to watch channels. And I've watched a couple of his reviews that they're not even reviews. They're talking about why a game didn't work for him or why it might not work for you. And he did a nice one on the Seventh Citadel, why he stopped playing it. And even though I came down very differently on the Seventh Citadel, it was very useful to hear him talk about it. And he just recorded a video on arcs. I guess he recorded a couple videos on arcs, but I found this one particularly useful because it's a very balanced view about what some people are finding it unappealing about it. Arcs is a sort of hot new game, competitive, really aggressively competitive game by the makers of Oath and Root. And I have some of my board game friends love Root, and probably I'm going to end up playing arcs, but this was a good video for me to see that it's probably not for me. Too attacky, but I like his videos. They're very watchable. You might want to check that out. And then the other channel is a little more of a oddball channel that's probably not going to appeal to you, but there are a whole bunch of channels on YouTube of people talking about dungeon crawlers. There's been a real revival in dungeon crawlers on multiple fronts. We've seen very polished, proper board games that are bringing in some real Euro mechanics to dungeon crawlers, which make them better games. And then we've got this a very high production stuff, and they're bringing in some narrative and role-playing elements to these dungeon crawlers. And then we're seeing this real indie revival of these solo hybrid role-playing dungeon crawling games. And they're one of the few areas where single developers have a real vision and create some very weird, interesting board games. And this author on this channel, Blue Botic, is working on a game called Low. And so basically this channel is updates on the game he's working on called Low, which has got a very neat aesthetic. And there are a bunch of other channels like this. This is just one, but I encourage you to look around. Someone was asking me about recommendations for solo games. And it sounded like they were interested more in dungeon crawlers. It tends to be a genre that I like hearing about, but don't really want to play. My favorite channel for that is the Dungeon Dive. I've recommended that a bunch. He is so good at introducing you to all these different mainstream and very indie games, and he's got a real good background knowledge of these different games that puts them in, talks about how they compare and stuff. I really love the Dungeon Dive. I think that's the best channel for that. But these little indie developers that are working on these games are really interesting. They all have a unique art style. Anyway, I would really recommend. So check out Dungeon Dive, but also stop by Blue Botic to look at Low and look around to these indie developers making these single developer games. You might find one that you want to back and encourage and support. Okay, that's it. We'll just see if there are any other questions. If not, we'll end this a little early, but that's all I have for you today. YouTube says 20 concurrent viewers, 12 likes. Let's see if we can bring up the YouTube stats here for this live stream. Let's see if this little JavaScript works. Okay, so there we go. I don't know why it's showing this huge amount. Why would you make a graph that started at 2 a.m.? I don't understand that, but okay. I do appreciate when you click like on a video, click thumbs up on a video if you like the video. That's not the worst thing in the world if you don't, but it's fun to see the likes. It's fun to It's more enjoyable to see the comments on videos, which I try to reply to. It's always nice to get a reply to a new video or an old video. It's fun. Rob says, Dear Holmes, next week, new or old case. We will resume our play-by-mail playthroughs next week, and we will probably be playing an old case, although I've got most of the letters for the most recent case. So Dear Holmes is ongoing. I have a subscription to Dear Holmes. Thanks again to the Patreon supporters that make that a little more palatable. But they don't send out a new letter every week. So we're mixing in old letters with new letters. I'm always looking for old Dear Holmes letters from used letters that people have already played through. I have a couple. So we'll probably start a new series next week. But I think we will start a new series next week. Jonathan is right. We won't be doing a correction. I will not be back in time from Gencon for that. So there will be no Dear Holmes next week. Thank you for correcting that. Water says, I've been playing Payne's Creek Killings PC game recommended by Jonathan Warner. There is a thread on the Board Game Geek Guild for this channel about computer games, and we've talked mystery computer games, and Return of the Obra Dinn was on that list, and a whole bunch of others, one of which I kickstarted that I keep meaning to try, called Scene Investigators. But there are a couple others that look kind of innovative. One where you're going... What's the one where you're going through old footage, looking for keywords, and you use the keywords to filter and search? And then there's a couple more. I'm not much of a computer video game player. There are a couple of games that I play, like Sniper Elite, but I haven't been playing many of the mystery games, but I would like to check them out at some point. Her Story, I think that was the one where you're looking through video footage. Lucas says, I'll have to check out your studio setup video. We were toying with the idea of starting a podcast out of my cafe. I can imagine there's significant knowledge carry over. A little bit. There are a couple of the chapters are on audio, so you could check out that. Obviously, it's all about audio if you want to do a podcast. The Payne's Creek Killings is by the same developer as Scene Investigators. Interesting. I'll have to check that out. What else? Is there anyone in the chat that is going to Gen Con? Is there anyone in the chat that's never joined for a live playthrough that just wants to say hello? What else should we talk about? I watched Rob Oren do his yearly video talking about how he's ready to quit YouTube, which he does every year. I haven't been watching my normal cringe watching YouTube channels, but oh, Rob Oren, I don't know what he's doing. What are you guys up to? That's what I want to hear. I wish you guys would come in prepared to talk about projects you are working on. Rob says Her Story wasn't great. I heard good things. It seems like a very clever idea. And in some ways similar to one of the ideas we've been playing with for the play-by-mail stuff, the idea that you would get highlighted keywords in replies that you could then ask about. Charisma asks, did you ever do the submarine one? Okay, well, that's a question out of nowhere, but I know what you're talking about, I think. Did you ever do the submarine one? That's a little ambiguous, but is it behind me on the wall? I think it's covered up. Is it somewhere right there, I think? We played a game on this channel called, was it Beware the Dark? Curse of the Dark. Curse of the Dark. And it was a very deluxe, elaborate, very cool experience. I did a review of it, and you can watch our playthrough of it, Curse of the Dark. It was very cool. And the same authors of that made another similar format game set on a submarine. I get the impression from the author who reached out after we played Curse of the Dark saying it might, that one was before and they hadn't quite gotten everything the way they wanted it. So I don't expect it to be as good. But we should play that. We absolutely should play that one. No, not at all. Okay, so we got a couple of new people saying stuff, which is nice. Fairly new and never caught live, but watched all your YouTube videos. I love this channel so much. Oh, that's so sweet. The way I deal with the chat on this channel, for better or worse, is that I look at it occasionally and interact with it occasionally, but don't try to have back and forth ongoing conversation just because of the delay on YouTube. There's like an 8 or 10 second delay. It makes it very hard to actually have a actual question back and forth. So feel free to type whatever you want and I'll eventually find it and check it out. And you're not going to distract me and throw me off course because I just ignore the chat for big chunks of time. There are lots of channels that don't do that, and I find it distracting to watch, but also I can't imagine how they're doing it. Like there are channels that are constantly in the middle of every sentence, they're getting distracted or taking a break to interact with the chat, and I don't know how they do that. Logan is here. Only project I'm working on other than high and low is painting interior walls and pet sitting. Joj says, not a project, but I played a Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective fan case with a couple of friends. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Quite short and easy, but we liked it. We need to get on a regular... We need to do what Rob says here. We need to get on a regular schedule of playing through Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective fan cases. There are a lot of them. We've played a lot of them. I've recorded a review recommending my favorite ones, but we need to make a concerted effort to go through them all. Maybe we need to set up like a once or twice a week, you know, first Thursday of every month, figure out a schedule that we go through these fan cases because they deserve to be played. There's some great surprises and the authors deserve it. What was I going to say? So I released this OBS plugin, and I was talking to another plugin developer who created some very cool stuff. There are a couple of sort of star developers of OBS plugins. Everyone knows in the OBS world knows this person, Exceldro, who's created some amazing plugins. And there's another author who's been doing some really good work recently, another programmer called Finite Singularity. I was just talking to him briefly. He's writing this very new, complicated plugin. And he has a Twitch stream where he was doing live coding. Now, if you don't know what the live coding is, it's a little subgenre of Twitch or YouTube where programmers are working on a project, on code, and as they're coding, they're talking through it. And he's writing this very hairy code in doing Qt stuff that's kind of fancy, and he's figuring out stuff, and he's doing it while he's talking to the channel regularly. And it's one of those moments where, you know, you think you're a good programmer like when I grew up, I was learning to code when I was 10 or 11. And in junior high school, I was teaching the computer classes because no one else knew the teachers didn't know how to program computers. And I went through that from junior high school and high school. And in that kind of world, you grow up thinking, oh, I must be the best programmer in the world. Like, I don't know any other programmers. I'm so good at this. But at a certain point in your life, you go, oh, okay, I'm not the best. But occasionally you get a snippet of something, like watching this person do this very serious coding while he's explaining it, while he's having conversations. You realize, oh, okay, all right, well, I'm not gonna rest my happiness in life at being the world's best at something. I mean, you don't really need to be the world's best. In fact, the whole story of the internet in our modern world is that you don't even have to be very good at something. You just pick out a little niche. It doesn't even have to be a unique niche. It could be a niche that there are 1,000 other people doing. It could be a YouTube channel on eating crabs, or, sewing in silence. Whatever it is, just mix up a couple phrases. You'll find some like-minded, you'll find your tribe. And I'm very appreciative to have found my tribe here. But you will find some, you will learn some stuff. You will find some people that for whatever reason click with you. Logan says, I just played through a 1992 FMV full motion video mystery PC game called Santa Fe Mysteries Elk Moon Murder. Never heard of it. Never heard of it. We are going to, in the next decade, enter a whole new world of the AI-generated games. That's coming. Stories, novels. It is absolutely coming fast. We'll see if there's still room for human stuff. Let me repeat again, though. If you are interested in writing cases and maybe bushwhacking a new trail through this idea of delayed response games, play-by-mail games, come stop by the Discord and we'll talk about it. I am writing the code, and I'd love to have more authors writing cases for high and low set in this world, but also just exploring this general topic of play-by-mail games and how can we make them more interesting and enjoyable. All right. Any other questions? Logan says there are already some cold case document games on Amazon using AI art for clues. Well, absolutely, the AI art is being used. And the AI art is absolutely being used not just within game, but one of the least harmful ways that it's being used is in creating trailers and stuff for games, you can see. And it's good in that way. I mean, I'm an AI person. That's what I went to graduate school for. So I find all of this AI stuff amazing and wonderful, but I can see why people are troubled by it. But the one really nice area where it's useful is on projects where they couldn't otherwise have art at all. You could imagine if a single person who's a writer wanted to have art for their single little game and couldn't find any volunteer artists like we were lucky to have with High and Low, you could see why the AI art is going to make it possible for single developers to work on stuff. And that's been a real trajectory in programming. It used to be that games were written by just single coders, and then the graphics and audio video multimedia got so became so prominent in making video games that suddenly a single developer couldn't do it, didn't have the skills to do all of those different things. So then you get whole teams, giant teams, making these AAA games. But now we're sort of going over that arch a little bit, where now a single developer may be able to use tools, whether it's 3D models from a repository or art models or AI art. Now a single developer is able to make some of these games again. So yeah, that's what Nukas is saying here. But obviously there's real controversy with the AI art. Logan has some strong feelings about this as well. It's going to be a little bit of a rough patch before we figure this out, but I don't think there's any way to stop it. And it's fascinating. Rob says the root trees are dead, used AI art. Now they're working on a stream version with custom handmade art. Yeah, I mean, the handmade art is always going to be preferable. It's just not practical for some projects, and having AI art is amazing for that. And I'm sure we'll end up at some point exploring some ideas in this play-by-mail system, some experimental projects that could use some AI art to generate some parts of the text, at least for some experimental games. All right, well, why don't we wrap it up here? There's no point in going on so long that everyone starts dropping out. Thank you for joining me. Thank you to the Patreon supporters. Thank you to everyone who joins me for the live streams. It really is a blast. I don't see any reason we should anticipate ever stopping. But I will be away for next week. So after next week, last 3 weeks of August, we'll be ramping up some live stream playthroughs. Stop by the Board Game Geek Guild and the GameQ thread if you want to have a voice regarding what games we play next and when we play Razorhurst Blood Alley. And I'll see you guys on the next video.